Hi everyone, my name is Yuriko Otomo, for those of you I haven't met yet, and welcome to the second GRN webinar on creating a winning publication strategy. So you might have joined this webinar because you're finishing your thesis and you're wondering whether to publish it as articles or a monograph. You might be wondering how to find a publisher for your thesis, or you've published a monograph or some journal articles and want to find better publishers. Or you're wondering how other people publish so much, or are trying to put together a long-term publication strategy of your own. We're going to be looking at why, what, where, when, and how to publish. By the end of the session, you'll have insight into why you should have a publication strategy. You'll know why, what, when, where, and how to publish, and you'll have a 5-step plan for creating and pursuing a winning strategy. So why have a publication strategy? Well, at its most basic, it's a list of texts that you might promise a hiring and promotion committee to produce. It's probably, but not necessarily, going to be related to your key teaching or research areas. A more developed strategy will align your vision and career goals with your planned publications. Your work can affect real change in opinion and policy, allow you to meet incredible academics, and most importantly, be a vital outlet for your creative and analytic energy. If you do put together a strategy, you'll publish better work, more work, reach a wider audience, or reach a more targeted audience. Find interesting projects to work on with others, drive your own teaching forward, develop effective ways of writing and publishing, and identify early on which tasks you can delegate. Obviously, you're not looking to publish for money, so I'd like you to quickly jot down what your key driver or motivation is for publication. It might be to pursue your love of research, to push your research along by having externally imposed writing deadlines, to shape a field by engaging with a smaller community of scholars, to get work or promotions, to have a reason to work with other academics, or to lay groundwork for a larger publication, to get your ideas out to the general public. Or you might have other motivations. So this will determine your strategy to some extent, how much you publish, which publishers you target, and how you carry out your research, the order in which you structure your publication flow, and so on. When considering what to publish, there are some decisions that you'll need to make. Quantity versus quality, books or articles, academic or online press, textbooks, case notes and book reviews, open access, and single or co-authored texts, and we'll also talk a bit about edited collections. So in general, to be promoted in a research university, you'll need to have at least one monograph, and ideally with an established publisher over the course of your career. You'll also want to have a few peer-reviewed articles in good journals, and depending on your motivation for publication and target audience, you might want to consider publishing in other formats. You might choose a different route altogether, of course, for publishing your work, and it depends to some extent which subfield you're in. A full article that breaks new ground in a field that's suitable for publication in an established peer-reviewed journal will take a full-time academic, on average, 1 year to produce. And traditional journal cycles would see it take another year for the article to go through the reviewing, editing, typesetting, and printing process. Books published by good university presses may take even longer. Shorter pieces published in newer peer-reviewed or non-peer-reviewed journals, or in hybrid or online-only publications, may have much quicker turnaround times. They may be more enjoyable to write. They might reach a larger audience. They may be more responsive to current issues, or be more experimental and exploratory. The cons might be that there is less editing involved and that you get less support. There are pros and cons to both options, but it's a good idea to be aware of them and to proactively focus on what would best suit your publication goals. You'll need to think about whether to publish books or to focus on journal articles. A full academic book may take 10 years to research, write, and publish. A journal article, on the other hand, will generally be much quicker to produce. Times are changing in publishing, with shorter attention spans driving the production of shorter books. And with the transition of many research universities to digital holdings, there is less of a difference in terms of accessibility. If your country has any kind of quantification and ranking system for research in universities, you'll need to be strategic when deciding what kind of publications to put your time and energy into. After the webinar, I'd love to hear from you as to whether your universities are pushing you to publish books or journal articles, or if they're more concerned with where you're publishing your work. Academic books and books for a more general readership don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive, but in general, they're quite different in terms of style and how they're marketed. So academic books, particularly if they're produced by good publishers, have a lasting power that more popular presses don't have. They are more likely to be cited, although with the growing dominance of online-only research, this is changing. One of the major drawbacks is the limited circulation that they have. So publishers, even the good ones, don't generally have a large budget to promote these kinds of books. And if your topic is narrow and your book is expensive, the readership will be restricted to a handful of expert academics around the world. It may be a good idea to translate your key ideas into a format that's more accessible, both practically and in terms of the language used, alongside your academic work. Again, with the internet, there are lots of platforms you can use now. Newspapers, traditionally, but also academic and popular blogs. There are magazines, association newsletters, and so on. You can also extend this to podcasts and vlogs, and if you make these, we're very happy to host them on the GRN website for you. If you're an independent academic, it may make more sense to publish for a more general audience, as those may generate an income and it will certainly reach a wider readership. If you're looking to establish yourself as an authority in the field, if you have a passion for teaching, or if there's simply a gap in the market, then writing a textbook or updating an existing textbook is a fairly straightforward way of producing a publication. They don't tend, however, to count in assessments such as the UK's Research Excellence Framework, so it would serve a slightly different purpose. Case notes are primarily descriptive and usually much shorter than a journal article. So these may be a good way of being published by a good journal and getting known by the editors, but generally they wouldn't count as original academic research. Book reviews are a lovely way of engaging with new work, and they're an easy way into publishing if you're new to it. So more developed book reviews are written in long form and can engage with a few books in the one essay. Again, they don't have the same status as journal articles or books, as they don't focus on original research, but they may be a good way of getting to know editors and leaders in your field. In recent years, there's been a move among some publishers, academics, and grant-making bodies toward creating open access, i.e. free content. Full open access publishing means that publishers make all articles available for free immediately on their website. Self-archiving means that after peer review by a journal, the author posts their work onto their own website or their university site, in some sort of open access repository. Hybrid open access journals rely on part funding from subscription and allow authors to post their own work upon payment of a publication fee, and often universities will have a budget to cover that kind of expense. Delayed open access journals publish articles initially as subscription only, then make them free after a period. Open access is fantastic for researchers as they both offer more exposure for their own work as well as making it easier to access the work of others. And of course, it gives the public free access to your work. In developing countries in particular, where some universities may have difficulty paying for access, this levels the playing field a little more. And I think that it opens the door to more collaborative work as well. I would strongly recommend you to take into consideration what the open access provisions are when you approach a publisher. Carrying out research and writing on your own can be efficient and offers control over both process and product. But co-authoring can be an extraordinary experience whereby you can think together with a colleague, drawing on both your strengths to make work that could neither could produce on their own. And work has the potential to proceed more quickly than it would on your own, and it's transformative in a deep sense. To write with someone requires letting go of control and trusting another person, compromising, discovering, and delighting in the creation of something that you may never have imagined on your own. Contributing to an edited book is much the same as submitting a journal article, but in my experience, there's less peer review, and the work may not circulate as much as a monograph or journal article. There is generally a more defined theme to which you have to respond, which can be restrictive. What an edited collection is good for is to break new ground in a field or to build a scholarly community around a theme or topic. They're often part of a conference or workshop and offer a substantive physical record of an academic meeting of minds. In addition, editing a book yourself or by inviting and organizing colleagues to do so can be a bit of a thankless task in itself, but the connections you make and the feedback you receive can be invaluable. I would recommend that you produce at least one single authored book and some peer-reviewed journal articles to figure out your ideas and style. But I urge you to try out collaborative writing if you haven't already. The GRN think tank can be a great forum in which to pursue this. The question of where to publish isn't necessarily a straightforward one. As I said before, it does depend on your motivations for publishing and your target audience, and it may differ too from project to project. The obvious aim for academics is to seek publication in the most prestigious outlet possible for their field. This will never be a bad thing, but there may be more appropriate places to publish your work, including industry journals, magazines, niche or newer journals and publishers, and so on. Your institution or community of scholars may have specific journals that they look to, and it's worth asking more senior academics for advice on this front. If you're interested in a more activist approach to your work, you may want to support those publishers who are in more niche, a niche area or based in developing countries or who target minority groups. And that might be consideration that you take into account. My rule of thumb for early career scholars is to try and publish where you most enjoy reading the work and where your ideal community of scholars tend to publish. When to publish? Now this too can be a trickier consideration than might first appear. Academics on the whole tend to submit work to a publisher whenever it's ready and then wait for it to go through the often lengthy process of review, typesetting, and printing. You do have options, however, which you might want to start thinking about as you begin various writing projects and as you accrue written work. So ref and other publication review cycles at universities is one consideration. If you've published enough to satisfy the number and quality required for the current round of, it might be promotion or it might be an external review, you may wish to hold back additional work for the next round. Planning a family. Your productivity will likely drop when you start a family, particularly if you're giving birth or breastfeeding, etc. You may wish to save non-time sensitive work to publish if and when you come under pressure from both care obligations and the university. You may wish to time the publication, probably online to a more general audience, of work that's on topical issues to coincide with major political or academic events. Looking for a better offer. So you might want to set aside your work for a while and improve it while looking for a better publisher, rather than trying to get out, if your aim is not quantity, that might be a good strategy. When you have work ready and decide to approach publishers, there are various things you can do to maximize your chances of having your piece considered. Collect as much information on each of your preferred publishers as you can, networking with people on the editorial boards. Look over the most recent few issues and read a couple of articles or books in depth. This will give you a clear indication of the style, the structure, and quality of argument required. And you might even want to do this exercise before you start researching and writing. Get professional feedback on your article, and the chances of being accepted by your target publishers will improve. Have your submission read professionally, proofread professionally. We offer this service if you need it. You could get a recommendation to the editors by an existing author. And to that end, it might be helpful to speak to others at the GRN, particularly if they're in your field, and find out where they've been publishing. If you don't have any previous connections with a publisher, send an inquiry email, without mistakes, with the abstract of your article in the email, with a short CV and your draft attached. Make sure you follow author guidelines on the publisher's website. And follow up in a week if you don't hear back. This is because academic series editors, commissioning editors, and journal editors are usually unpaid and need to negotiate with various people too to have your submission considered. So it may take time. And always be polite. You don't want to burn any bridges. By the time you've written a PhD thesis, you've probably got your daily or weekly writing habits worked out. If you enter an academic career, however, your work pattern will probably have to evolve around different and growing demands. Teaching, administration, kids, family obligations, long commutes, and extensive travel. There will be strategies that you aren't fully leveraging yet to achieve your publication goals. One of these is to work with others. Because of the nature of academic life, with intensive periods of teaching and administration where you can't focus on your writing, handing an article over to your co-author in those periods and vice versa can speed up the process for both of you. Get feedback throughout the writing process. So writing groups such as the ones we run at GRN can be a fantastic way of ironing out problems early on and motivating you to produce more and better work. Network. Get to know the publishers, editors, authors, and reviewers at your target publications. Outsource and delegate the time-consuming aspects of creating publications. So this might be citations, proofreading, formatting, and also turning your drafts in line with, putting them in line with the publication author guidelines. You'll also want to think about post-publication promotion, and this is particularly the case with major work, such as books. You'll want to make sure that your work is open access, that you go to conferences to talk about it, that you post on social media, and also that you organize reviewers. Again, this is more relevant to books and edited collections, to monographs and edited collections. Just to go back to that, a quick word on post-publication promotion. I and a lot of colleagues have been disappointed following promotion of books disappointed in publishers not promoting it as much as we expected. And I think that that really was a matter for expectation management, because when you're an academic, you don't tend to think about the marketing side of the work. But it's helpful if you do prepare for it in advance, and to talk to your publishers about different things that you can do and the different conferences at which they'll be, and at which you can speak with copies of your book in hand. And finally, you have your 5-step plan to creating a winning publication strategy. So first, focus on your key motivation for publication, and that will determine all the other things that you do. Consider which formats and outlets will best meet your publication goals. Publish in your ideal community of scholars, and that might take a while to discover. Hold back the publication of some work to support your planned career trajectory, because you don't want to have years in which you don't have any publications. And use concrete strategies for effective publishing. So this means managing more than simply the writing aspect, but thinking about preparing in advance, preparing reviews, looking at publishers, and then making your finishing process more effective by outsourcing the work that you don't have to do, and then also following up to make sure that the work that you produce has the maximum impact that it can. In this webinar, we've covered quite a lot of ground, and so you should now have insight into what you need to have a strategy, know why, what, where, when, and how to publish, have a 5-step plan for creating and pursuing a winning publication strategy. I'm going to be creating, for all the webinars, I'm going to be creating exercise sheets and downloadable text to go alongside them, so they'll be up on the website in due course. If you'd like us to give you one-on-one support with building your plan or developing your strategies, do get in touch.